And we are live. Welcome to the Last Line Soccer podcast presented by Prime Focus Goalkeeping. Very excited to have our guest with us today. I'm going to let him introduce himself to you because I probably can't do it justice. So without further ado, we have former Houston Dynamo, former Colorado Switchbacks goalkeeper, former Wake Forest goalkeeper, Andrew Pannenberg. Welcome to the show, my friend.
What's up, Brandon? Thanks for having me.
What a calm, cool, and collected response there. How are you doing today?
I'm great, man. How are you?
I am, I'm really happy. We got City and Tottenham on in the background. I'm not going to be paying attention to that, though, because I'm going to be paying attention to you. But first off, I want the listeners to get to know who you are. Right? I don't want, but I don't want like a 15-minute diatribe about your entire life from 5 years old all the way up until where you are now. I want to know, give us the high points. Give us a quick synopsis,
Yeah, man. So from Charlotte, North Carolina, grew up playing in the academy here for Charlotte Soccer Academy. Ended up playing 4 years at Wake Forest University. It was always a dream of mine since I was little. So proud of that. And even we won an ACC tournament my freshman year and made the Final Four my junior year, which was, very fun, exciting time. Ended up being drafted to Orlando City in MLS and ultimately ended up playing that year in Colorado Springs with the Switchbacks. Made my professional debut there. Ended up last year playing with Houston Dynamo, the second team, and being pretty integrated in with the first team all year. And now just figuring things out for the 2023 season. So it's been a journey, a lot of traveling and going to different areas, but a lot of lessons learned along the way and a lot of great experiences with some great people.
And that's awesome. We're going to touch on a lot of those lessons. All right. But let's track it back a little bit. So talk about your time at Wake. You said it was always a dream of yours to go to Wake. Why was that? Specifically Wake?
Yeah. So
that's the question.
What say one more time?
Specifically, was your dream to play specifically at Wake, or was it to play like ACC soccer, Division I soccer, high level Division I?
Yeah, so growing up, I actually had a buddy on my team when I was like 8 years old, and his dad went to Wake. And so after one of our games on the weekend, they told us, hey, you got to come up and watch one of these soccer games with us. And so basically that day we went up and they told me all about Wake and how amazing the fans were and the games and even this cool hotel we stayed in that night. And so there was a lot of anticipation building up to it, and we got there and watched the game, and it was a great game and great atmosphere. And so I completely just fell in love with it, and that was around 2007, and that was actually the year that they won their national championship, the only national championship in school history. So it was really fun for me to continue to follow that fall, and then I remember sitting in my TV room, and my dad had gone up to the games with me that fall, and he was away that weekend, but I was watching the game and I was calling him on the phone, getting all excited when they beat Ohio State 2-1 in the 2007 national championship. So, as I got older and into, high school, I think I didn't follow as much and those dreams kind of went away, but it was always a dream of mine, like you said, to play in the ACC, play high level college soccer. But I actually had just getting called into the U17 national team. And right after that, I had a message from Coach Muse at Wake, and they wanted me to come on a visit. And so I did. And it had been the first time I'd been on campus ever since, I was 7, 8 years old again. And all those kind of feelings came back, and just being on campus and going to the game and seeing the environment and everything. And I had gone on some other college visits, but I knew that Wake was where I was meant to be. And so, like I said, it wasn't something that I carried with me all growing up, but, the minute I stepped back on campus, I knew that it was going to be the spot for me.
What a lovely story. That's really, that's touching. So let's talk recruiting a little bit. I want to talk recruiting. I get these conversations or get these questions all the time with you goalkeepers that I work with. It's like, how do I get recruited? What's the best way to get recruited? How do I get in touch with coaches? How do I get seen? Like, what are some tips that you have for goalkeepers when they're trying to get recruited to college?
Yeah, I think my experience might be a little unique because, um, like I said, I got called into the U17 residency and trained with them a couple times, and I think that had kind of helped me gain some visibility toward different college coaches. And I even had played in the Academy Select game, which was a game at the time where some of the best players in the country, were invited to play in front of all these college coaches. So um, I would say my biggest recommendation would just be volume, to where it doesn't really matter if you send out an email to a coach and they don't get back to you, or you go to a camp or something and they're not interested. I think if you can determine different places that you've identified you'd like to play at, you'd like to go to school, and you reach out to them, as many as you can find, I think ultimately that's going to serve you best, because there's so many different options out there, so many different situations, so many different coaches and schools that you may not even know about until you step on a campus or research. So I would say, as much as you can, just not be afraid of putting your name out there. And, I would say get together some video and get together all your accomplishments on a resume or something like that. And then just don't be afraid to reach out, because at the end of the day, the worst thing they could do is not reply or say no. And, for me, that's always better than wondering what could have happened if you did decide to reach out to a coach. So I think if you can send out some emails with, like I said, video, resume, and even attend some of these camps, I think that can be a great way for the coaches to actually see you, in person. And so those would probably be my biggest recommendations.
So what you're saying is shoot your shot.
Shoot your shot, man. Shoot or shoot.
Shoot or shoot. Absolutely. Shoot or shoot. Nice. All right. So I want to talk a little bit about, you said you got drafted by Orlando City. In what year is that? 2021?
21, yes, sir.
2021. All right. So let's talk about preseason going into Orlando. What was that experience like?
Yeah, again, I think it was a pretty unique experience, because that was the height of COVID. And so usually when the players get drafted, they come together and it's all the players at the same time. But I was actually the only one who had been drafted from that class to come into preseason. So, it was a bit difficult just being the only one and trying to get used to the team and everyone just kind of on my own. But no, man, it was a great experience. I feel like I got integrated pretty quickly, and the guys, took me in pretty quickly. And yeah, I think that it was a learning curve of just kind of going from college. I think the professional game is a completely different beast in terms of just it's just a business, to where it's all about results. And you miss out on some of those aspects in college of the camaraderie a bit, but at the end of the day, that's what professional soccer, that's what business is about. So it was a bit eye-opening just to see how cutthroat, I guess you could call it, it being. But no, it was definitely a great experience. I met a lot of great people there, and yeah.
So what was it like, that transition from college soccer to professional soccer? What were some of the noticeable differences for you that you had to get used to on a consistent basis in training?
Yeah, first off, you're playing with, men now who can be in their late 20s, early 30s. And it's a lot more physical, to where in college you're playing against guys, late teens, early 20s. So I think right off the bat, that's, a piece that you have to adjust to just as a goalkeeper, coming for crosses, coming through traffic. I think balls are coming just at a harder pace because you have more talented guys, stronger guys. So that's number one. Number two, like I kind of touched upon, I think it's unique to when you're coming in a locker room in college, to where, you're around some of your best friends all day long, whether it's going to class, going to the dining hall, and then going to training together. But when you're a pro, everyone lives in different places. You all don't live in the, student dorms, and everyone's just coming together for training. And then when training's over, pretty much everyone leaves and goes back to their family. So it's not really like one is better than the other. It's just different, so I think getting used to, again, that kind of transactional business type relationship to where you're here with a group of guys trying to win a championship and you're trying to, get better every day, but it might not have that same camaraderie, feel good aspect that college soccer might. So for me, I think when I talk to college soccer players now, I tell them just to embrace that and enjoy that as much as you can now, because, like I said, it's not like one's better than the other, but it's just unique, and you only get that experience, for 4 years and maybe even less for some. So, just enjoy that and understand that when you do, step into a professional, and if that's what it's going to be, the locker room and all that it's just a little bit different.
Yeah, I think the biggest adjustment for me back, way back when I stepped into the professional ranks, a long time ago, ages back in the dinosaur age. The biggest thing for me was realizing, like, I remember when I stepped into training that first week, I was like, man, this isn't that hard. Like, this isn't a huge difference. And then I realized, once I got a month in, once I got 2 months in, once I got like 3-4 months in, and I was realizing, like, this is what I do every single day, and I have to perform at a high level every single day. It's a little bit different, and there's a little bit more added pressure when you know that your paycheck is kind of attached to that, like your livelihood's attached to. I have to perform well, or else, I may not be here next year. I may not have a livelihood next year doing this. And so that was the kind of the thing for me, is like, it's a bit different in college when you go in August and you're done. We never made it past like the second round of the NCAA tournament. So typically, that's done before Thanksgiving. But like, that's 3 months, 3.5 months. Whereas like a USL MLS season now, you're looking at 8-9 months minimum, right? And it's just a little bit different to be able to have that longevity in performance and consistency in performance over that time. And then there were little things for me, like you talked about, the finishing aspect of like guys being bigger and stronger, like the accuracy of it. Like, guys are hitting the bottom corner on a consistent basis more than they were in college. You see a lot of top players in college who can perform at that level, but like at the professional level, there's so many different guys who have so many different skill sets and can place the ball, where they want it on a consistent basis. So finishing looked a little bit different for me, but those are like the major changes I noticed when I made that jump to the professional ranks. And so talking a little bit about going, you went into Orlando, you did well there, you ended up not signing. And so what was your mindset like after that of, you got into that environment that you wanted to be in, didn't quite work out. What is that mindset going into, trying to figure out what the next move is?
Yeah, I think initially, like a lot of things in life, when, you're dealt something that isn't ideal, I think it can be hard in the moment, and you don't really understand, what the bigger lesson there is for you to be learning. So I think initially, like I said, my goal going in there was to sign, but that didn't happen. So at first I was a little disappointed, and but I started reaching out to old teammates and using connections and agent and all that to start seeing where the opportunity was. And, lucky enough, there was an opportunity in Colorado Springs. But, the big lesson and takeaway for me there is that ultimately at the end of the day, it's nice if you get signed, and, it would have been cool, I guess, if Orlando had signed me. But the biggest thing is you got to find an environment where you're valued and where there's an opportunity to play games. And, I think the feedback I got from them was that they liked me and thought I did well, but at the end of the day, they didn't think that I was going to play games for them. So I think for any goalkeeper, the big lesson is find somewhere where, you can really show yourself, because it's one thing just to be training day in and day out and even do well in training. But at the end of the day, it's all about, games, game day, and stepping on the field when it really matters. So, luckily there was an opportunity for me to do that in Colorado, and I got a couple games under my belt that season, and I was definitely fortunate for that. But going back to that main message, I think wherever, if you're a high school keeper and you're going to college and you're trying to find what's the best school for me, I would definitely lean to a school where you think that there's a good chance that maybe you're not going to just be given that playing time, but to where the coaches can see you in that right, and to where, you believe you can compete for that playing time and earn it, as opposed to a school who might just, might be a better school, might be a higher up school, but, they're just picking you up just to be a GPA boost, or, just to be filling a roster spot. Because again, like I said, at the end of the day, games are the most important. If you go to a mid-major school and you're playing games, week in and week out, and you're helping your team win, I think that might be a little bit better for you than, going to one of the best schools in the country, but just, sitting on the bench and maybe not, getting that playing time. So.
Yeah, I think it's you bring up an interesting point. It's like it's all about fit, and I think it's definitely about fit in college, and then you got to understand at the professional level too. Is like, going into Orlando and Orlando not signing you doesn't mean you're not an MLS goalkeeper. It means that at that time in that in that training environment and in the team that they had, like, you weren't the fit for them. And so I see a lot of guys who don't understand the fine margins of being a professional athlete, especially being a professional goalkeeper, where, there's 3-4 slots on a team. There's one goalkeeper that's mainly going to play. Like, it's about, how are they going to develop their young goalkeepers? So hopefully potentially break into the first team. How do they have like a veteran backup that's going to, step in if the starter gets injured? Like, there's so many different aspects that go into deciding who's going to be on an MLS roster, who's going to be on a USL roster. And so finding the right fit and finding the right timing is key. And so understanding that is like how you have to navigate through your career, so that you're not, getting yourself or knocking yourself down every single time like one place doesn't work out. There's plenty of other opportunities. Expansion teams are popping up every single day. Like, it's about finding that fit, that's going to get you the opportunity to get games and build that resume and hopefully, reach the highest level that's possible. So I think that's a really
going off of that. Yeah. No, it's just all about need, like you said. And I think that's something I didn't realize, and I definitely learned. And it's like, you could be good enough for a team, but they just might have a need. They might not have a need for that year. They might only have 3 or 4 spots for goalkeepers, and for the next season, all their goalkeepers are signed to another contract for that next year. So it doesn't mean that you're not good enough for that team. It's just, you got to find out what the need is. Where are the needs? Where are the teams with the needs? And you look to be the solution to fill that void.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're one of the few goalkeepers that has experienced, like USL environment, an MLS first team environment, and an MLS second team environment. What are some of the differences you think in those environments, and kind of discussing what that path to, the top level, which is MLS in the United States, like, what do you think are some of the best pathways to doing that? Because I think that's one thing that players don't really think about, is like, there's so many different ways. Like, everyone right now is like, you get into an MLS academy and then you sign a first team contract and boom, your life is set, versus like a majority of people aren't going to go that path, but there are players who don't go that path and still can make it to the highest level. So what do you think is the most effective way to make it to the top level?
Yeah, I'll preface that by saying, I think you kind of touched upon it, but everyone's path is different. If your goals are to play in MLS, to play in Europe, to play in the World Cup for your national team, I think we tend to look at certain players' paths and think that is the one way. And just because I'm not there right now, it means like I'll never get there. I think sometimes we can tell ourselves that, maybe it's subconsciously, but at the end of the day, the reality is that if you look at the World Cup roster from 2022 World Cup for the United States, you have guys on that roster who everyone's path is different. You have some of the guys like your Tyler Adams, your Weston McKennies, who, grew up as some of the top players in their age groups and, made their way to Europe young. But then you also have guys like Matt Turner, who, wasn't even drafted out of college, and he's our starting goalkeeper in the World Cup. And you have guys like Aaron Long, who he was, dominated in USL and ultimately made his way into Red Bull first team and MLS Defender of the Year and onto that national team roster. So first thing I'll say is that, everyone's path is different. And I think you have to, know that as a player and embrace that. And the second thing I'll say is, going off of that, with everyone's path is different, I think throughout my career, of just, college, different opportunities with professional teams, I've always asked myself before I've made those decisions, what's the right decision? And I think that ultimately I had to come to terms with myself that really, if you have multiple options of different colleges you could go to, different professional paths, like Brandon said, if it's, opportunities at a USL team versus, MLS or MLS Next Pro versus USL or something, at the end of the day, the right situation, the right decision for you to make is the one that you can spend the time and think about and identify as the best. But then once you get there, making the absolute most of, right? Because you can go into an environment that is on paper the best situation for you, but if you're not ready to, maximize that situation and make the most of it every single day and work hard and grind all season and perform, that great situation on paper is going to be for nothing because you didn't make the most of it every single day. And vice versa. You could go into a situation that is, pretty challenging and it's a pretty uphill battle for you to break into the starting 11. And, you put in the work every single day and certain circumstances arise with injuries and you make the most of your opportunities and boom, now it's, it's turned into a great situation for you. So one thing I tell myself is, I got to remind myself that it's a daily thing. I tell myself it's an everyday thing to where you never know what's just around the corner. You never know what opportunities are going to arise. And so, as cliche as it is, you really just have to make the most of every single day and continue to hone your craft and your skill and just be ready for when those opportunities come because they definitely come. And, all that matters in the moment is if you're ready to perform or not. So.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned earlier that you've been integrated into the first team a little bit with Houston Dynamo. What was that experience like training with, some of the top level goalkeepers in Houston and in MLS even? And so like, how would you compare yourself in training or like, what was your mentality like going into training every day with the first team?
Yeah, no, I mean, I was definitely fortunate to get in with them and get to experience that kind of locker room and that kind of environment on a daily basis. But, the goalkeeper coach, Zach Thornton, he's, been a dominant goalkeeper in MLS and even as a coach. So I definitely tried to pick up as much, information from him as I could in training sessions. But even, training with the first team, Steve Clark was a starter last year and, he's a great dude with a lot of great information. He's, we talk about everyone having their own path. He's definitely had his own very unique path to get to where he's at and to have the success that he's had. So I think it's a balance because obviously when you come into an environment like that, you want to, show as best as you can. And I think it's great for you to come in. I tell the young goalkeepers who, some of the academy goalkeepers from Dynamo who would get the opportunity some days to train with the first team and say, you got to act like you're the starter of the first team right now because no one's going to believe it until you believe it. So I think for you to step into a training and believe in yourself that much and set that standard for yourself every single day, no matter how old you are is a very, important thing. But like I said, it's a balance to where I think you should shoot for that, but at the same time, be open to, feedback and be open to, criticism and also ask questions. When you're around a goalkeeper like a Steve Clark, who's, 36 years old and played in leagues, top divisions all around the world. And, he's been to MLS Cups. I think, there's a lot of information there. There's a lot of wisdom. There's a lot of experience. There's a lot of, emotions, highs and lows that he's been through. So, like I said, setting your expectations high for yourself and your goals, but then also, being open to the feedback and even asking the important questions to someone like Steve or, whoever it is in your environment or some of the top players on the team, because, their experiences and their lessons are ultimately what you can carry forward and help you in your own career. So,
yeah. So you mentioned goalkeepers having, their own path. Now I want to talk about goalkeepers having their own technique, because this is a conversation that I've had a number of times on social media and off of social media with a number of different goalkeepers, goalkeeper coaches, people who have comments about goalkeeping. So I've got some quick fire questions for you, and I want to get your thoughts. Okay, are you ready?
Always ready.
Are you nervous? Always nervous. All right. So knee drop or no knee drop?
No knee drop.
No knee drop. Okay. No knee drop. Why is that?
That was just the way that I was always taught growing up, and this is not what I do. I mean, I think if you can get your hands behind a ball that's on the ground like that, and you can get your entire body behind it, there's really no need for it. So it's just me.
Okay. Scoop or front smother?
I say front smother. I always front smother.
Like to keep it very safe, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I know some other goalkeepers who have let in goals that don't front smother. So
okay, top hand or bottom hand?
I mean, that's just entirely situational.
Love that. Good answer. All right, triangle or W?
I was always taught W when I was younger, but I think it's a bit of a hybrid between the two. But I'd say more W than triangle. Triangle is a little too far for me.
Okay. Last one. Side volley or full volley?
Side volley.
Okay. How is your side volley?
Oh, it's amazing.
Impeccable? All right. Love that.
Impeccable.
Right, so let's talk about some self-development goals. Like how do you set goals for yourself in terms of like training, games, full season, and like what do you focus on in terms of development, and like how do you go about developing that throughout a season?
Yeah, I would definitely say before a season starts, you should always sit down and ask yourself what your goals are and map out what you expect from yourself that season. And my philosophy on setting goals has always been set them as high as possible because, like I was saying earlier, you never know what's around the corner and you never know what's really possible. So I would say set those goals as big as you can and things that, really motivate you because there's going to be definitely ups and downs of the season. And I think that those goals can definitely motivate you and get you through those down periods because, they're so big and motivating. But so I would say that at the beginning of the season, definitely just looking long-term to the end of the season. But then, me at the end of every practice, every day, I always take at least 5 to 10 minutes just to, I have my own personal questions that I ask myself, but I think if you can at least write down some of the things that went well in the session, some of the things that you think you could have done better on, and then just some principles that you've learned from the session. I think if you can ask yourself those 3 things every single day, it'll definitely help you move forward of just seeing consistently, what you're doing well, what needs to be improved, and then, what you're learning. Because for me, I think one of the biggest things is you're going to make mistakes, throughout a season in a practice. That's just part of life. That's just part of, being a goalkeeper. But I think as much as you can mitigate making the same mistake twice is one of the biggest things. So how quickly can you make a mistake or see, a hole in your game and immediately shift your focus on improving it and how you can make it better, as opposed to, letting it kind of fly under the radar of, okay, I let in the goal because, I didn't get my, feet set correctly in this position and let that slide once. And then it happens, the next week and then the next week. And then, ultimately you're seeing mistakes happen over the course of a season just because you didn't take the time to, sit down and reflect. So I would, every time you step on the field and, you're post-training, you're, take a shower, get your, lunch or whatever it is, I would always recommend like 5 to 10 minutes, just sit down and reflect. So again, like I said, you're taking an inventory of knowing what your strengths are, your weaknesses are, where you're doing well, where things can be improved. So, I think ultimately that reflection is what can, really move your game forward and set, some of the good goalkeepers apart from the really good ones, the great ones.
Yeah, I think that kind of leads into my next question of like, what would you say? How do you become a good goalkeeper? What do you think? I ask you, hey, Andrew, I want to be a good goalkeeper tomorrow. How do I do that?
Wow, tomorrow. Wow, we got a lot of work to make that happen. But
okay.
For me, a lot of it is just experience. I think that you see some of the top goalkeepers in the world. You look at World Cup rosters, and I mean, I think I saw countries like Mexico and Australia. You have goalkeepers who are all over the age of 30. Some 40 or early 40s. So nothing is going to replace time of just training and the experience of playing games and seeing different situations. So I think when Brandon asks, how can I be a good goalkeeper tomorrow? I think that patience is one of the biggest things, and consistency and stability of that. So understanding that it's a process, and understanding, like I said before, that it's a daily thing. It's an everyday thing. So that's what I will say off the bat. But I think getting into whatever consistent, high quality training environment that you can at an early age. So whether that's your local academy. I think things have changed so much since I was playing. But if that's a MLS Next team, in high school, or if it's ECNL, or finding the highest quality level of training that you can get on a daily basis, and then mastering every single day, like we were just talking about, and making sure that you're reflecting and learning where you need to get better, and even like we were talking about earlier as well, getting games, so and learning from those games and reflecting from those games too, and moving forward, and just always trying to put yourself in the highest level environment. So I think if you play a year in MLS Next, and if that's where you're supposed to be, or maybe even seeing if there's another local team, or maybe even I've known plenty of guys who have completely moved cities just so they could be with the best team, or be with an MLS academy or something like that. And I'm not saying that's what everyone needs to do, but at the end of the day, I think if you can get to the highest level training and highest level environments at the youngest, earliest age, that could be the best thing for you. So like I said, getting in the best environments, getting games, and then continually pushing yourself to, okay, what's the next level, and how can I get there? How soon can I get there?
Okay. I like that. So to piggyback off that, there's a lot of different aspects of goalkeeping, and a lot of different things that goalkeepers can be really good at that'll make them successful. What do you think is one aspect of goalkeeping that every goalkeeper needs? Like, what is one thing every goalkeeper needs?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think that you had said earlier something about goalkeeping styles, and for me, I don't think there is really right or wrongs when it comes to technique, because I think that there's so many different kinds of goalkeepers. If you watch English goalkeeper training, it's going to be a lot different than Spanish national team goalkeeper training. So I think that when we talk about skill set, it can really vary, because you have some of the top goalkeepers in the world from all these different countries who have all different techniques. But I think the one thing that really sets goalkeepers apart is just their mental strength, mental ability to regulate their mind and their emotions and their self-talk. So again, if you look at someone like Steve Clark, is he the most athletic goalkeeper you've ever seen in your life? No. Was he the best technically coming out of college and even through his professional career? I didn't see him then, but I would probably have to guess that he wasn't. But the one thing that for me about Steve that has stood out in his career and in his story has just been, one, his dedication to his goals and knowing what he wants and just going after it just unrelentingly. And then two, his ability and his mental strength to push through the hard times, to know that, they're going to come, and, just continuing to drive through, the rejection of not making a team in a trial, or, being released by a team and having to go somewhere new and do it all again. So I think, and a lot of that does go back to what I was saying earlier about patience, of just understanding that it's a long game. You're playing for the long term, not just the short term, but the ability to be persistent towards your dreams and just to continue to push through the ups and the downs and just stay level-headed. I think, for me, that's what separates the best goalkeepers, are the ones who just continue to push even through, because it's like, at the end of the day, we all make mistakes. We all get scored on. We all have, bad games every once in a while. But if you let a mistake stop you, if you let a bad game stop you, if you let any of that get in your way, if you let a team who tells you, no, stop you, you're never going to make it long term. So I think just that persistence and that mental strength to just continue to push when things get hard.
Yeah, I think the most important aspect you brought up there is like understanding what the long-term goal is and having an eye on the long term as opposed to making so many short-term decisions that are short-sighted. I think I did that a number of times in my career where I didn't really think about the long-term goal, which was to play at the highest level possible, i.e. like MLS. A lot of it was just like, finding short-term security of just getting into an environment where I knew I was going to be a starter or knew I was going to get games, but maybe it wasn't the best path for me to move forward in my career and advance my career and challenge myself and do all those things. So I think, having an eye on the future and understanding that it's not so much about today, but it's about the little things that you're going to do every single day that's going to get you to that long-term goal. I think that's another thing that guys don't think about is like, they don't want to put in the work now. They want to put in the work when they get there. But in order to get there, you got to put in the work. And so that's kind of like, I had a little bit of that struggle in my career where I was like, once I get to MLS, I'm going to be in the locker room at 7 a.m. and I'm going to have all the resources and I'm going to have the gym and lunch and breakfast and all that stuff. And like, it's going to be a perfect environment. That's when I'm going to really start working hard. But like the hard work to get there is what really like builds the foundation for that. Like you're not just going to all of a sudden get to MLS and have all of a sudden have a work ethic. It's like you got to build that in whatever environment you're in, and that can stick with you, and that's going to help you get to that next level. But if you don't have that, it's going to be really hard to get to that top level. And so I think that was the biggest thing that stuck out to me throughout my career.
For sure. All right. I think I saw a quote one time that said something about how, they say the grass is greener on the other side, but this quote said the grass is greener where you water it. So basically, wherever you are right now, man, just make the absolute most of it because, yeah, like you said, that work ethic has to come before, MLS or whatever it is.
Yeah, philosophical Pannenberg. I love it. I got one more question for you. You've been a professional now. This is going into your third year, right?
Sure.
Who do you think has been the most influential on your career so far? Like you've trained with a number of goalkeepers in Colorado and Orlando and in Houston. What goalkeepers do you think have been most influential, and what have you taken away from them that you still use to this day?
Yeah, that's so what's that?
Besides me.
Yeah, besides Brandon. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but playing in Houston last year, Steve Clark was a good mentor for me just to learn a lot about him and his journey, and to see someone who cares so much about the game and so much about the position, and who takes the time to see all the little details of his game to make sure that he's playing at the highest level on every single weekend. He was definitely very influential. I'd have to say it's interesting. Some of the academy goalkeepers that I trained with in Houston were pretty influential on me because it was cool to, I think a lot of times we learn best by teaching and showing things that we already know, because I think sometimes the things that we already know can be so ingrained in us that we don't really consciously look at them and think about them. But, to be able to talk with some of these 16, 17-year-old goalkeepers who are in the same exact position that I was when, 7 years ago, when I was, looking at colleges and thinking about playing professionally, to be able to talk to them about specifics in my game and how they can apply it into theirs, and seeing their techniques and seeing how they can improve. But even talking about some of these mental aspects that we've talked about today, of just the persistence and making the most of a training every single day. I think that, that was pretty influential on me to have to articulate some of the ways that I train and some of the things that I believe that have helped me get to this level. So I definitely think it was cool to be able to work with them and to have those conversations with them and to get back. So I know it might be a little counterintuitive, but I think they definitely pushed me to become better.
Okay, that's a good answer. I like that. Well, I think that's it for me. I really appreciate you joining, sharing your knowledge. Excited about your future. So I think for me, you have a good mentality, and I wanted to be able to share that with the listeners. And we talk about paths. You had a different path than I had, and you have a different path than a number of goalkeepers have. But success is still, out there for you. You've been successful to this point. You'll be successful in the future. And so I want guys to understand that, guys, girls, whoever it may be. I want goalkeepers to understand that, like, the journey is maybe difficult. It may be up and down, but like, you just got to stay consistent with it and you stay positive with it. I think that's one of the biggest things as well. So Andrew, I appreciate you joining. I'm going to hop off and go watch the rest of this game, but thank you for your time, my friend.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
All right. And that is another great episode of the Last Line Soccer Podcast. Check us out on YouTube. You can catch us some clips on TikTok. Follow us on social media and go check out the website, www.primefocusgoalkeeping.com. Until next time, my friends, take care.